Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is finding it difficult to accept that yesterday's forceful entry by its operatives into the residence of immediate past governor of Lagos State, Akinwumi Ambode, constituted an unlawful invasion of privacy. The commission denies it was a raid of the former governor's home. What then is the true situation? And if proven to be true, why has it happened now, and who could have been behind it? Critically, just as the Ambode saga was playing out here in Lagos, the Nigerian police was landing a big fish in the northern city of Kano by rearresting Amisu Bala Wadume, the notorious kidnap kingpin, who had been on the run for over 2 weeks. For an overview of these two developments, we are now being joined by Chief George Agbakahi, a public policy analyst and president, African Democratic Alliance. Welcome to the program, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Chief Agbakahi.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome to the morning show. Well, you must have had Tundun's introduction. And quickly, we would like to ask you,
yes.
What's your take on the rearrest of Hamidu Bala Wadume by the police and that whole saga, between involving the police and the Nigerian army? What do you think? Do you think that some commendation may be necessary for the police, or it's all something still very messy that we can't figure out?
I think the rearrest of Wadume by the Nigerian police in Kano State is a step in the right direction. The whole country was well aware of the incident that occurred in Taraba State between the Nigerian military and the police when this kidnap kingpin was first arrested by the Nigerian police, and the problem that ensued, which ultimately led to the killing of 3 policemen. I think the rearrest of this man is a good thing for the country, and in the first place, it will bring to view the circumstances surrounding the release of this young man by the security agencies. When the police and the Nigerian army had this problem that led to the death of 3 policemen. I think the government really needs to look into it and get to the root cause, of the problem, Well,
according to Hamisu Bala Wadume, he was released when the soldiers recaptured him, as it were. Why was that the case? Because his statement so far was quite vague, but even with that, it's clear that he was released by them and then went on the run. So they actually let him go, a suspect that had been apprehended. Why was that the case, and do we expect more details to come out? Are we expecting names to be named, or is the situation being kept vague deliberately?
Those are the questions that we need answers. Why was this gentleman released after he was apprehended by the Nigerian police? You see, the problem we are having in this country that ultimately led to this particular impasse is the issue of intelligence sharing. All over the world, in gathering of intelligence and intelligence sharing among the security agencies are key in resolving criminality. So that's what we are lacking in our country. I think the security agencies, there has to be a synergy, amongst them all. The Navy, the Army, the Air Force, the Nigerian Police Force, even the security defense, Nigerian civil defense, as well as the road safety. They need to have a common database, and work in synergy so that if there is a problem here, the other agencies will know of this problem. That would help us prevent, issues like this, from coming up. This is not the first time. It is not the second time. You know, it needs a lot of work. That's why whoever is coming, you know, to handle the portfolio of defense and the portfolio of interior need to be somebody, you know, with that managerial skill, so that to bring all these agencies together so as to avoid this kind of issues from coming up is very common in our society, and it is wrong. Absolutely. Intelligence sharing, intelligence gathering are key.
Absolutely, Chief. And there seems to be a serious lack in trust for public institutions, or rather even just security agencies across the country in terms of what they say against the people's word as well. For example, now we have friction between the army and the Nigeria police force. At the same time, we have the story going around about the EFCC and their alleged raid, quote unquote, on the ex-governor of Lagos State's home in Ekpe yesterday. And these are issues that take away public trust in security agencies. So what is the starting point in regaining that public trust? Because I believe it all starts from there. If we can get the trust levels up, everything else will flow. Or do you beg to differ?
Well, in governance, trust is very, very important. The people need to trust their rulers, you know, and if that trust, if they don't have confidence in the leadership, then there is a problem, you know. That's why, you know, we just finished a very tough election, and we have a president who has been re-elected. The ministers, you know, probably will get their portfolios today. You know, the key is that confidence, trust, integrity, these are all virtues, you know, that we need in the leadership. The issue of what happened in Lagos State, in Ambodo's house, is also a case in point. You know, I wouldn't really want to interfere a lot in this issue because it has become a legal issue. My understanding so far is that there is an issue of 9.9 billion naira, you know, that came out from the coffers of the Lagos State government, and that originally the chief of staff, you know, to Ambode, as well as the permanent secretary, you know, to the chief of staffs, are the people, you know, that they are really going after. Then at some point, you know, investigation, you know, from one person to the other, at some point they had to veer, you know, into, you know, the governor's place, you know, as part of the investigation. You know, I think this is an investigative process, and Ambode has rightly said it, that his hands are clean. So I don't want to venture a lot into this until, you know, we'll see the outcome. You know, I understand there is a court date on this September 9th in relation to this, you know, this particular raid. So we can, you know, get to the bottom of it. You know, I think this issue portrays the fact that the current administration fight against corruption is not only one-sided. We all know that Ambode, you know, is an APC governor, was an APC governor, and we also heard of the raid on Governor Okorocha of Imo State. You know, I think this shows that, you know, is wholesome, is no longer sectional as was depicted, you know, in the past.
Chief Agbakahi, let me take you back to the point you made about synergy between or among the security agencies and the importance of it. But how did we get to a point whereby the police and soldiers are always clashing? We have this incident in Taraba. Shortly after, we heard that some policemen went to a neighboring community in Lagos, or, you know, in Ogun State, where they were involved in some untidy killing of some people who were having Eid al-Kabir festival party. How did we get to a point that, you know, soldiers who should be busy in you know, in the war front or at the front lines fighting Boko Haram are now busy, you know, doing police work all over the place and clashing with the police or with the civil defense. And what can we do about this? Is it a failure of leadership, or is just, you know, too much enthusiasm on the part of the Nigerian army? But, you know, I will urge you to hold your thoughts on that. We'll take a short break, and then when we come back, you can address that question. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Stay with us in our Abuja studio is Chief Judge Agbakahi, a public policy analyst and president of the African Democratic Alliance. Chief Agbakahi, before we took that commercial break, I'd asked you a question about why do we now have soldiers doing police work all over the place, sometimes mounting even their own checkpoints, where they allegedly collect tolls from hapless Nigerians. And then we have this conflict in terms of duty and responsibilities between the soldiers and the policemen, whereas the mandate of the military is well spelled out.
Thank you very much for that question. You see, we all know that the mandate of the Nigerian military is with regards to external aggression. But also, in our Nigerian society, you know, we all know that in most cases, because of the security situation in the country, especially when you consider the activities of the Boko Haram, the Fulani herdsmen, the IPOB, and in the past, the Niger Delta militants, it became obvious that the Nigerian police could not handle all these activities at one time. I think that led, you know, to bringing the military, you know, to assist the Nigerian police in civil defense, you know, and I believe this has also been very helpful in curtailing, you know, criminality and, you know, the insecurity in the country, you know. But the issue of, you know, all these problems between the military and the police as well as other, you know, security agencies is not a new one. It's been very long. You know, you remember vividly even during the military era, you know, I think during Ida Babangida's administration, when a police PRO, somebody Ogubaja, you know,
not
doing much, that they Ogubaja, exactly, when he had accused there was a similar problem like the one happening now. And he went about to accuse the military of not doing a whole lot of work. They only stay eating pepper soup and planning how to, you know, carry out coup. You know, you remember that vividly. And not only in Nigeria, even in the US in particular, there has also been issues of lack of synergy between the CIA and the FBI, you know, as well as state and local municipal police. You know, even currently, you know, in these immigration issues in Nigeria, you remember vividly what happened in Chicago, in San Francisco, when the immigration agents raided, you know, a lot of illegal immigrants. But on the other hand, the local police or the municipal police went ahead and we are kind of, you know, giving a leeway to some of these illegal immigrants. So it is not only in Nigeria, but to me, what it requires fundamentally is leadership. And this leadership has to come from the top. That's why I had pointed earlier, you know, in this session, that whoever becomes the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Interior, has a huge role to play, you know, in bringing in, you know, about synergy, you know, among all these security personnel. You know, to me, the person that will be in charge of the military and that is defense and interior, in most cases would not need to be a military man or a retired military general, like was the case in the past 4 years. You know, you can get somebody who is a civilian but has, you know, a managerial skill that has that leadership qualities to bring people together. Because in most cases, when you bring in a military general, retired general, you know, to oversee defense and interior, sometimes they get into loggerhead with the chief of staff, with the service chiefs, in such a way that they are trying to teach them their jobs. You know, these people, the chiefs of staff, you know, are the commanders. They are the field officers. You know, even though you were once a military general and now in charge of defense or interior, your job is predominantly managerial, you know, and not to tell them how to do their work in the field. So these are the issues.
Thank you, sir, for that historical perspective and international perspective. It really puts things in a different context. But speaking of that, you also mentioned IPOB. What is your take on the assault that was meted upon former Deputy Senate President, two-time Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu in Nuremberg, Germany? Some would posit that it was embarrassing, disgraceful, a poor showing by Nigerians abroad, as if these incidents don't happen abroad. In Germany, they have had politicians shot in the head. Their homes have been bombed. In the UK, politicians have been assaulted. Not to excuse any of that, but it's not a Nigerian phenomenon. Just as you have rightly said, lack of cooperation between security agencies is not a Nigerian phenomenon either. But what is your take on that assault, and what does it portend for the future? Has the tide turned against the political class, or was that just a flash in the pan?
I totally condemn the attack on the former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu. But on the other hand, you know, these are issues that came up as consequences of bad leadership, of bad governance. Listen, let me tell you, with the advent of social media, nothing is hidden all over the world. Even what you are doing in your bedroom is well known overseas, you know. So this particular issue with Ekweremadu, I think is also a wake-up call for our political leaders, you know, to live upright, you know, and to work harmoniously with the people, and also bring in, you know, dividends of democracy. You know, you see some of our governors, you know, when they come out of office, you know, they have everything. They own the whole world. Look at the issue of was it Governor Rocha Sokorocha? You know, how he has been irate. He used you know, state government, you know, funding to build universities, and these are all allegations. Those are issues. I also understand that many of them have also been accused, you know, of having lots of houses overseas. You know, these are backdrops of democracy, in my own view. And, you know, it's, like I said, it's a wake-up call. You know, our leaders, our upcoming leaders, you know, need to understand that democracy is all about the people. But in Nigerian democracy, like I've always pointed out, you know, Nigerian democracy has now become a democracy that depends on the nature of struggle that exists in our society. Our politics has become a do-or-die affair. You know, they spend all this money in political campaigns, hundreds of millions and perhaps billions of naira in political campaigns. So as soon as they get to office, they'll try to replenish all these monies that they have put into this campaign. That is the point. You know, so in my view, you know, all Nigerians, irrespective of your ethnic, political, and, you know, religious leaning, you know, we need to look for a way to cope together. We need to look for a way to search our conscience, you know, and reach out to one another at this period, this difficult period of our country, and rededicate ourselves anew to democratic ideals of tolerance, love, rule of law, respect for the individual, you know, and work in harmony, you know, for the betterment of this great country. If this is not done, what happened in Germany against Ekweremadu, I tell you, would continue to happen in other areas or other parts of the world. Then that, I know that is not democratic to me, but we have to look for a way to make it work.
Now, it's not an attack of the same nature, but I want to bring in another incident that we've had against the political elites in recent days. Yesterday, the Deputy Governor of Nasarawa State was also attacked by suspected robbers, heading to Abuja for the swearing-in of ministers today. So it seems as though the spate of insecurity has gotten to a point where even the political elites, who really and truly may also be the cause for the lack of insecurity, are now not safe themselves. How have we gotten to this stage, and how do we start to revive ourselves and renew this country from this serious, dire state that we're in?
You see, when you talk about insecurity, let's look at the root causes of insecurity. You know, then you talk about the ethno-religious conflicts in Nigeria. You know, you talk about, unemployment. Talk about abject poverty, which in some cases, are being concocted by all these, political leaders, on the masses. Do you understand? Mind you, some of these kidnappers or robbers were once political thugs to all these political leaders. But after the election, the political leaders litter them. They are left alone. And in some cases, they don't have any other choice than to go into robbery, to go into kidnapping, which we believe are very wrong. So when we want to solve this, we need to solve it in a holistic view. In a holistic view. Do you understand? So that, when people graduate from the university, they need to have jobs. Even if they don't have jobs, they can be empowered to start up their own businesses. That's why we have agencies like SMEDAN, agencies like National Directorate of Unemployment. They train these leaders, they train these young men in vocational training. And at some point, they can now empower them. Some of these people do not need a lot of money to stand. Some of them 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira, 200,000 naira. They can start. They can stand and start up a business. But in Nigerian situation, you see a lot of governors. Look at security votes running into billions. Some of them pocket this money into their pocket. That is the problem. We need to pray for this country. Let's pray for this country. Let's pray for our leaders so that they can do the right things. And as soon as they do the right things, this issue of criminality, not that it will definitely stop, but it could be reduced to barest minimum.
Well, thank you very much, Chief George Agbakahi. We've enjoyed this conversation with you very much, and we hope that when next we invite you to the morning show, you will oblige us. Thank you very much indeed.